Welcome back to Success Through Connections. This week, I have a really awesome guest, and she's all the way from the United Kingdom. So while it's daytime for us here, it's nighttime for my guest. So I'm so glad that she was able to do this with us today. So today's guest is Tracey Currell, and I met Tracey virtually through a mutual connection of mine called, his name is Jake. And he said, you absolutely have to get to know Tracey. Y'all are going to love each other. And we have had several conversations since that time. And I can't wait for you to meet her as well. So my guest today, Tracey Currell, all the way from the United Kingdom. She is a serial entrepreneur. She is a property investor. I think she owns an Airbnb, if I'm not mistaken, or a bed and breakfast. One of those. I know she's an investor there. And she is the founder of the organization called IntroBiz, which is a membership networking group. And that's what we're going to talk about today, mastering networking. She's also a motivational speaker, and she raises funds for charities. She has been a role model for the Welsh government. She loves empowering students and entrepreneurs of the future. I love that. I know she's doing some new things with that. And she has also created the largest business expo and shared the stage with some pretty impressive people like Lord Alan Sugar, Grant Cardone, Marie Diamond from The Secret, and The Apprentice winner, Mark Wright, and Sharon Lichter, who she's all about the Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I've had her on the show before. And she also has worked with, Sir Richard Branson. So that was pretty cool. And I know this is a fact. I've seen the pictures. I know it's true. I know it's true. I know that she has a big goal to impact and connect 1 million people in 5 years and turn that into a massive impact for the economy. So without further ado, I have Tracey here with us today. Welcome, Tracey.
Thank you so much for inviting me on, Zelda. Really appreciate you.
I'm so glad you're here. And so I have some questions about your networking. I've always said, you're not successful by yourself. You have to have connections. So when someone calls you, because I know you have a little thing, it's called the Connection Queen. When someone calls you the Connection Queen, what does that mean to you?
Well, what it actually means, and I actually shared a couple of weeks ago and last week when I was doing a talk for a load of students up in Leeds in England, I don't call myself that for ego purposes. It's more coming from a place of serving, because obviously the Queen or the King, they serve their country. And I serve my clients and I connect my clients. But because I'm so passionate about connections and connecting good people together, that's why I just came up with the Connections Queen. Because yes, it is a little bit of a slogan. B, it's a bit of, people think, the Connections Queen, I need to talk to her. So it's a great little conversation starter, if you will. But it's not coming from a place of ego. It's coming more from a place of serving.
Well, that makes total sense, because they're all about serving. The Queen is about serving her subjects. So there you go. You're serving your clients. So what about your upbringing really influenced you to want to connect with people today?
Well, I grew up in the pub trade. So from the age of 12, my mother and father used to run British pubs. So I used to live upstairs in the pub, and I used to come down into what was my living room, and it was a pub full of people.
Oh.
So, yeah, and it was great. I mean, don't get me wrong. We had a living room upstairs, and obviously, but I always talk about how I come down into the pub. It was a bit like being in my living room, and it was a pub full of people. So I was always surrounded by lots of people. I've always been a massive people person anyway, because having been an only child, my mum, when I was first born, my mum and dad wanted more children, but unfortunately, my mother had a slip disc and she wasn't allowed to have any more children because she could have been paralyzed. So she was having terrible trouble with her back, and they said, you can only have your daughter. We wouldn't advise you having any more children. So my father didn't want her to suffer. So, but they always had lots of children around. Like my father used to pick my mum up from work when he was doing a night shift, and he'd obviously get up to look after me, and he'd pick her up in the afternoon, and there was a car full of children. Because I always wanted to be surrounded by lots of children, because I was, loved playing with them. So I've always been in the scenario of having lots of people around me. I used to do curry nights in my house many years ago, when my husband was then going out to his annual meetings when he worked for the big company Diageo. So I always used to have friends round and used to make a big pot of curry. We all used to dance in the living room. So I was very sociable.
Oh, yeah.
And then it morphed into when I first went to my networking event, and I got networking wrong, actually, in the first 3 months. I was trying to sell to people. And obviously networking isn't about that. It's about getting to know, like, and trust. I didn't get any business for the first 3 months, but I did actually really enjoy it because I was meeting new people all the time. And I just absolutely fell in love with networking. Hence, I created my own business.
So what was it that made you have that aha moment to, I'm going to create this IntroBiz? What was the catalyst for that?
Well, obviously, I was working for a local business magazine, and my boss told me to go out networking, and I'd asked him what networking was. And he said, oh, you go to these business events, you swap your business cards and you do business. And I thought, oh, off I go then. And I was obviously trying to close deals at the event, and surprise, people were going, oh my God, who's this full on pushy saleswoman? And obviously I didn't get any business. But I think it's always important when you're in business, if something's not working, you need to find out why it's not working, change it, obviously, to make it work. So fortunately for me, I did actually happen to get along with a few people. And I said to them, I went up to some new friends of mine, Julie and Mandy and a couple of the others. And I said, listen, girls, I'm doing something wrong, am I? Because this networking lark isn't working for me. I said, I'm not getting any business. Or you've got to tell me, am I doing something wrong? And they said, yeah, can we be honest with you? I went, give it to me. Because again, it's good to get constructive criticism, constructive feedback so that you can improve and grow. And they obviously told me that I was trying to sell to the room. I was trying to give it the hard sell to people. And it's not about that. It's obviously building relationships first. So the first 3 months of getting no business to then learning how to do it the right way. And it's being, finding out about others, showing an interest in them, asking lots of open-ended questions about them, because networking is never about you, or your business is never about you. It's what you can do for you and your business can do for others. So having learned how to do it the right way, from month 4 to month 12, I went on to sell £95,000 worth of advertising revenue just from networking, and realized how powerful it was, when you learned how to do it the right way,
So when you started the IntroBiz, what was the focus at that time, and what's its purpose in today's world?
Okay, so when I first started, it was all about obviously getting people together at networking events to connect them so that they can grow their business. And obviously we do that very well, but we do offer now a done for you bespoke service for people so that if they want to have better connections faster, I provide a done for you service whereby I have to fact find and find out all about the client once they sign up to that membership. But then, I find out who is their target audience. Do they have referral partners? If they don't, they should, because obviously that's where I'm really strong. I find good referral partners for companies, because obviously that's like having other salespeople out there in the business community for you, finding opportunities.
Your advocates. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know what? Honestly, Zelda, you'd be surprised how many companies don't actually have referral partners. There are a lot that, don't get me wrong, because there are a lot of people who know how to network and create those relationships and referral partnerships, but there's a lot that don't. And this is where I come in and obviously, empower them, teach them, educate them that there is another way. There's a quicker way. It works very well once you connect the right people together, so we offer that service as well.
So when people join the membership, what does the group do? Because I know you do a lot of in-person things.
So we do a couple of events a month in person. We used to do every single week before COVID. And then obviously when COVID hit, we had to pivot and change and take everything online. And we now do more online than in person. And a lot of people, they say, you get, it's split. A lot of people will say, oh, I don't like the online. I'm fed up of online. I'd rather in person. And don't get me wrong, I'm a human connection strategist and specialist. So for me, I love the in-person stuff where I can give somebody a hug or a cwtch, as we call it in Wales. And I love that. Meeting people in person is brilliant and it's the best way. However, what online does, it gives you more global reach. It saves you money. It saves you time. You can connect to more people. So now we were doing 2 online events a week. plus once a month with a Dubai network, because I collaborate with a Dubai network once a month with SBC Connect, Phil and Michelle. Lovely, lovely network over in Dubai. And we add value to each other's networks by coming online together and bringing our networks together, because I'm all about collaboration and I love to promote them as well. And I've actually introduced some of my clients to them because they've moved to Dubai, and it just makes sense to join their network because obviously they do a lot of in-person events in Dubai. But we're actually doing 3 online events a week now. So starting from tomorrow, we are doing 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, 4 p.m. on a Wednesday, and 9 a.m. on a Friday. Only 1 hour sessions, so we don't drag it out for hours. We call them the power hour. But the reason I'm doing Tuesdays, because we used to just do Wednesdays and Fridays, but we're doing Tuesdays because we're attracting Americans now to join our network. And because of the time zones, I wanted to make it so I had a new client I signed up from New York a couple of weeks ago because I was in New York recently on a human connection panel. And I said, right, let's do Tuesdays as well so that it gives them value, that they won't just access one event a week because the 9 a.m. on a Friday is 4 a.m. their time. They can access 2 a week because most people would come once or twice a week. So if they know they can come twice a week, or even if they can't come on a Wednesday, they know they've got that session on a Tuesday. So they've got the choice of coming to one or coming to both. Or if they're crazy enough.
It's tricky when you start then getting people from the Midwest and from California, and their time zone is different. So, you might have to start recording them. But so you get these people, they join your organization. They have access to many people now to make these great connections. So, and you've been doing this for many years. So I'm wondering, when people join these organizations, a lot of times all of a sudden they're there and they're paying, but then they go quiet. How do you keep them engaged so they don't disappear and become ghosts?
Well, obviously you've got to, I always say touch and feel your clients every single week, not in the physical, but obviously making sure. So keeping in contact with them on a regular basis, maybe connecting them to somebody or encouraging them to come to a masterclass, or if they want to host a masterclass, because if they go quiet, you do find that there will be people who've got all good intentions of joining a network like they do when they join a fitness club to lose weight. It's very similar. Oh yeah, I'm going to join the network. And then all of a sudden we don't see them for weeks on end. Now, some clients, I will stipulate this, that networking is the long game. It's not a short-term win. So for those people who are listening that might think, I'm going to come, I'm going to join you, and I'm going to get thousands of pounds worth of business straight away. Don't get me wrong, that can happen. I'm not saying it can't, because it can. However, it's more of a long-term strategy because IntroBiz and other networks are all about building relationships, and that takes time. I had a client who only joined a couple of months ago, and he was like, I'm not getting any business yet. And I said, well, you might not get business yet because you've got to build your relationships first, So, this does happen where people think that they're going to get business straight away, and that's not always the case. So I like to manage people's expectations. So if you are thinking of going networking, don't necessarily think that you are going to get thousands of pounds worth of business straight away, because it may not happen. And I say may not because obviously it could.
My son joined an organization for networking. And he says, okay, I'm going to give it a year. I go, and you might have to give it a couple years because people have to get to know you. And it takes time. You don't just become somebody's new best friend just because you met them. So, do you see that? Do you see any trends in networking other than some are online and off? Are there other trends that you see in the networking or membership space?
Well, I think the trend at the moment, obviously there's a lot of AI out there at the minute. And I do believe that AI can replace a lot of things, but I don't think it'll replace human connection because we all want that human connection. Don't get me wrong. I use AI in my business and I am continuing to, in fact, I've got an AI agent that's going to be inviting people to an online event, but it's a free online event for people to try. So the AI agent won't be selling to people, but it will be inviting people on as our guest for them to give them to have a taster session. But, so AI is obviously assisting with things like that. And I think there's a lot more networking going on now. Every man and his dog is doing networking events. So this is where I saw that things needed to change. I needed to offer different things. And I knew that it was happening, that it was starting to, more and more people were starting to put on their own networking events for their potential clients, for their clients.
Yeah.
and any social event that you go to, whether it's the races or the cricket or the rugby or the football, is all networking. Everybody's socializing for business. However, offering the done for you service that I offer, which is more of a bespoke service, that's one of the reasons why I did it, because everybody was doing things and I wanted to do things differently, because I like to stand out. I like to be different, but I also like to offer a good service.
So that's great. You have to be a little different. So how do you see I know I want to get into a little bit about, I know you have a passion for speaking to youth and inspiring them. And I know you just did an event, so we want to hear about that. But I also want to hear if you can tell us a little bit about, do you see the different generations networking differently? Like you've got your baby boomers, your Gen Zs, your Gen X, your millennials. Do they differ in how they network?
Obviously, a lot of young people, because of, during COVID, a lot of them couldn't go out. So there was a lot of lacking in confidence, which is one of the reasons I thought about doing Youth Biz. A lot of young people were conversing on their phones rather than having a conversation in person,
Yeah.
which can then create a lack of confidence with people. I don't think they network differently in the sense of when they do come, the young people that I've seen are very good actually, because when I did the talk in Leeds last week, it was a load of engineer students. Now, a lot of engineer students, they're quite technical.
Yes.
But boy, were they
And
great
quiet.
communicators.
They weren't quiet.
They were great communicators.
Huh?
Now, as a guess, I would have said, oh, they're going to be really quiet. They're going to be really introverted. They weren't.
Ah.
They were fabulous. And it was so lovely to see. And some of them were so savvy and so bubbly and enthusiastic. It was really awesome to see. So I loved last week seeing that. So I don't think that they network differently, but I do think that we need to encourage more young people to go out networking, because there's not enough of them going out. You see a lot of young people saying, I'm looking for a job. Well, go and start talking to people. Go to networking events where there's company owners and directors and decision makers there, because people buy people, And I think it's so important for young people to start going out there, because I've met some of the most amazing people, as you've just mentioned, through networking, speaking to people, connecting with people. And I've created the most amazing opportunities, not just for myself, but for my clients, because my strapline is IntroBiz, creating and connecting communities for global opportunities. That's what I want to do. But I want to change the game for young people, to show them the way, to show them that the opportunities are out there, are limitless, which is why I'm going to be doing Youth Biz.
I think that's wonderful, because I've got younger children and I see my grandchildren and they're always on these devices. What advice would you give somebody who's not the youth, who's maybe the baby boomer, who doesn't want to retire, or maybe they're retired, but they still want to get out there and meet people and mingle and do that? What kind of advice would you give for them?
Well, I would say just go out there and start talking to people, show an interest in other people. Don't make it all about yourself. Ask lots of open-ended questions. Be curious about people, but also realize that when you start a conversation, you don't know where that conversation is going to take you, but never, ever judge a book by its cover. I always use the analogy. Remember the Pretty Woman film with Julia Roberts and Richard Gere? And remember when she obviously goes into the store and she's not very well dressed. She had a little short mini skirt on. And, it's when she was poor, and they looked her up and down and they judged her. And what happened? She got the rich boyfriend, and a few months later, she goes back next door and spends all the money. And then when she takes her handbags into the store that made her feel uncomfortable, she went up to them and she went, big mistake, huge. And she showed her bags and walked out, and they were all like, oh my God, they were gobsmacked. Because never, ever judge who you're talking to, because you don't know, the person you're talking to might be the next person that could be your business partner, your potential client, or it could be your next friendship. You just never, ever know. And you also don't know who they know. So I always say this, look beyond somebody's eyes. Don't just look into their eyes where you're just taking them on face value. Think of who they may know. And don't judge people, or don't feel that they're not the right person for you, because many times people have discarded me thinking that I only know, when I first started, they said, oh, it's only, I don't want to talk to you. You only know small businesses. Well, little old me from Cardiff ended up on Necker Island, was networking with all these multimillionaires and billionaires that could have potentially been good for those people that
How
judged.
did you end up there and meeting all these millionaires and the Richard Bransons of the world? How did that happen?
How that happened was I was asked to speak at a conference in Dublin. And I was on stage, and I'm a massive believer of the law of attraction, but I always believe that if there's something that you want in your life, and I said this to the students last week, make it happen for yourself and put it out there publicly, because then you're going to look like an idiot if you don't make it happen. So I actually shared that I wanted to go to Necker Island one day, and I was telling everybody we were talking about entrepreneurs, and I said, oh, one of my favorite entrepreneurs is Sir Richard Branson. I love what he stands for. I think he's very fun-loving, but a very clever man, and he's very good at business. But obviously, he's quite philanthropic, so he does a lot for charities, and I like that too. So I was sharing that one day I said to them, the audience, there was about 250 people in the room, and I said, I don't know when and I don't know how, but one day I'm going to go to Necker Island, I'm going to meet Sir Richard Branson, but I'm going to take clients for the experience. Because remember what I said, creating and connecting communities for global opportunities is never about me. It's always about what I can do for others. So I always like to try and create opportunities, not just for myself, but for my clients or potential clients. So as I came off the stage, there was another speaker went up, and then an hour later, it was the break. And during the break, this gentleman came up to me, Brian Chittick, and he said, and he actually became a friend and a client. He said to me, oh, my friend Hannah has just been to Necker Island. Would you like me to introduce you to her? And I said, oh, that would be amazing. I said, I would love that. And to be honest with you, Zelda, I didn't think that I was certainly going to get invited or thought about going myself. It was really only to find out, what did she learn from Richard? What were the conversations like? What was Necker like? What were the people like? What conversation did you have with Sir Richard, and did you learn anything from him? Those are the sorts of things that I was going to ask her. And don't get me wrong, I did ask that. But what came from that conversation was, Hannah said, I love your energy and I'd love to work with you in some way. And I said, well, let's make something happen for us. So I knew she was a digital nomad. She was very good at marketing. And she said, I said, how about you come over and speak at one of my events and then sell a little marketing course that we can do together. And you can come and stay with me when you come back. And she said, oh, that'd be great. So I actually put her up on the stage. She sold 8 clients, a little course for the day. I think it was a 2-day course, because she came over and I said, well, don't pay to stay in a hotel because that'll eat into your profit. I said, come and stay with me. So that'll save you on your hotel bill. So she came and stayed with me. We got to know each other. She was only a young girl, but she was lovely, very good at what she did. And she said, oh, I'm going back to Necker, Tracey. I'd love it if you came. She said, I'd love for you to come. And I said, well, let's see if we can make it happen. So she introduced me to the Premier Live guys who put on the Necker Cup. It was a tennis tournament that they did every year. And got introduced to Trevor Short. And he invited us to go over there. So, it was quite a lot of money and it was a big investment to go. But I'm never the type of person that says, oh, I haven't got the money right now. I always think to myself, what have I got to do? What have I got to sell? What have I got to hustle to get to where I want to go? And I took 5 clients with me. And obviously I had money off my ticket because I sold 5 of the tickets. And me and my husband went, or my husband at the time, we're ex-husband now. But yeah, we went there and had a wonderful time. It was fabulous. Really nice.
And you met him there.
Yeah. And off the back of going there, I got invited on his birthday bash on the Virgin Voyages. And it was supposed to have been in July 2022. And this was July 20. No, I tell a lie. It was supposed to be, this was in December 2019, the Necker Cup experience, which I went to. And that's where I met him. And the following July was supposed to be, July 2020 was supposed to be Richard's 70th birthday. And we were doing the event on his cruise ship then. But because COVID happened in the March, it got postponed until July 2022, because July 2021, there were still red flags in America. You probably remember.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. So we couldn't go out in July 2021. So we ended up going in July 2022. And initially I sold 18 spots to come on the cruise. But because of COVID, a lot of people cancelled because they couldn't spend the money because they hadn't even had holidays with their family. So they couldn't justify it. So 9 of us went instead of 20 of us. But it was still fabulous.
It sounds fantastic. I mean, meeting some pretty famous people there. I'd be in awe. So
Uh,
you're expanding now to the US. What's your actual goal for the US market?
Well, very similar to the UK because, times have been very tough out there. But, I always believe that when you network, whether it's locally or globally, there's opportunities everywhere. So I believe that I can help people globally. I love Americans anyway, because I love America and I love visiting America. And I've been 3 times in the last 4 months. I started off in San Diego in March. And then in May, I went to LA and San Diego again, following up on the people that I'd met in March. And then I did New York in June last month. As I say, I was hosting a panel session at the creativity conference in Microsoft Garage, which was awesome, in Soho in New York, which was great. So I've met a lot of people over the last few months. And obviously now some Americans are wanting to connect to me. They've joined my program. They've joined the community. So yeah. And I want to, not just teach young people in the UK, globally, about networking skills. So if that takes me to America as well, happy days. It's one of my favorite countries.
Like, I've been to England. I've never been to where you are. You taught me
In
well.
Wales.
I've never been to Wales. I went to London, and that was it. I spent 2 months in Europe and quite a few weeks in London. So, but
Amazing.
let me ask you, if our audience wants to learn more about your membership, they want to learn more about you, how can they connect with you?
You can either connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram as Tracey Currell, Currew, or you can reach me on info@introbiz.co.uk.
Okay, so there you go. That's how you reach Tracey. So Tracey, we're just about out of time. I have one final question, my signature question that I ask everybody. So the question is, can you share a story about an opportunity that presented itself to you because of a connection that you knew? One that you haven't told us. We don't know about Sir for Richard Branson, so can't use that one.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've met thousands of people over the years, but met somebody called James, and he introduced me to another gentleman, and I ended up becoming a Big Ideas role model for Welsh Government, which is quite, it's a great kudos to have, that you are part of Welsh Government, that you are wanting to help and serve young people. So I obviously, because of an introduction, I ended up becoming a role model for young people. And now, years later, this is now what I want to do going forward. So it stood me in good stead, I think. And I think it probably planted a seed with me about creating Youth Biz, having done that from quite a few years ago, going into schools, teaching young people how to network.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Tracey. So I know it's late at night. It's going to get dark there soon.
Thank you so much, Zelda. It's been lovely spending time with you. Thanks ever so much.
And to our audience, I hope that you'll remember to subscribe to this channel, and that success does not happen in isolation. It happens because of the connections that we have. So keep reaching out and keep making those connections. Till next week, this is Zelda with Success Through Connections.